Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our new webinar from DataArt dedicated to applying artificial intelligence in digital health project and its role for personalized therapeutics. My name is Ivan Pantikin, VP of Healthcare Life Science at DataArt in Europe, and I will play a role of moderator today for our webinar. So we chose the topic as nowadays AI and generative AI gets a tremendous attention, and everybody's talking what does it really mean, where to apply it, how to apply it, and what kind of human routines might be replaced or augmented by artificial intelligence. And today we will try to address all these topics and all these questions specifically for the area of digital therapeutics and diagnostics. And we believe that to make it in a holistic way, we need to address three main pillars, so basic principles of building a solution. First of all, what we're going to build, right, from a strategic or visionary part, and in regards to the product development, how we're going to build it in regards to what is the correct approach and technical implementation of it. And the third, but not least, of how we can be sure that it fits into the environment. I mean, to comply with the ethical norms, regulations, etc., etc. So to address these three pillars, let me introduce and welcome our guests here with our webinar. We have Dr. Patrick Pscheller, who is our partner of a strategic consulting and project manager with more than 25 years of expertise in applying digitalization for the medical device and pharmaceutical industry. We have Andrei Sorokin, who is our technical solution architect and one of our experts in applying AI in healthcare life science. And we have Oliver Pilgers, who is from Reginald Group, our partner in regards to the regulatory consultancy and CE marking, and he's the one of the main guy to be sure that we're doing everything properly. So again, getting back to the topic, as I said, nowadays it's very important to understand where we can apply these kind of technologies, right, or how it might be applied in the area of personalized care and personalized treatment. And Patrick, my question might be to you: what kind of use cases or solutions we're talking about here?
Yeah, let me start giving you some examples and referencing to probably the most prominent and earliest topic, at least that I've been discussing and working with in the beginning of my career back in the last millennium when I was involved with bioinformatics, genome sequencing, and expression profiling, good old days. And that was actually about individualized cancer therapy. Everybody was talking about it. Theoretically, it's all possible. Cancer is a genetic disease, and it's very complex. And it's obvious that a multifaceted diagnosis could lead to personalized treatment. And this is indeed where we are currently, I think, in the middle of it, but by far not complete in terms of all the opportunities. And how can AI support that? It can be used to analyze the unique genetic profile of cancer patients and tumor samples to create customized treatment plans. And AI-based software can identify the specific cancer subtype and genetic alterations. And based on that, doctors can select targeted therapies such as specific drug cocktails for chemotherapy with less side effects, immunotherapies, CAR T-cell, and hormone therapies, just to mention a few that are more likely to be effective with a certain cancer situation and with ideally limited side effects. And in breast cancer, for example, there are different treatment approaches. There are very many, depending on the subtype. And AI-supported sample analysis allows doctors to be fast and recognize a patient's breast cancer subtype and select the appropriate targeted therapy. Now, in general, this is all about personalizing and be more precise. It's precision medicine, more precise in dealing with therapy. And this in this case aims at switching off overactive oncogenes, and other areas it may be reducing pain and other things. And I think we need to think about ways of using this power of theoretical opportunity to find therapy options to have better patient therapy journeys. And this cancer topic can go even as far as to interpret very complex biomarker profiles. Now, okay, this is just that oncology example. Now, taking that further, this is what we are thinking of, is combining this general idea of using individual diagnostic or genetic information and supporting digital companion apps for various disease therapies on patient therapy journeys. And just to give you a couple of examples, so just imagine that you can measure with a sensor your brain's electroencephalogram, being an epilepsy patient, and using AI to kind of, based on learning of thousands of EEGs and variants of disease onset and so-called seizures, and your the patient individual's EEG profile development. This could lead to very effective alarming a patient during his daily life, so that they can actually find a place to sit and a safe spot, get prepared for a seizure, which could be very dangerous if people fall. In such an app, you could collect various information like actual stress levels, recent food intake, carbohydrates, support further AI-based learning, and improve the therapy management for that individual patient. Now, this is a very sophisticated example on purpose that requires not only the AI algorithm development, but actually also clinical validation of all of this. It's a complex medical device system, so we need to ensure that it's sensitive, it's robust in patient use at home, and it needs to reliably alarm and not forget an important alarm and the patient is then in danger. Another example is then integrating an intelligent chatbot into a DIGA, reimbursable health apps that are currently all over the place in Germany, and to enable answering a patient directly, even with a visualized mascot, emotional component, to interact with a patient almost as a digital counterpart, a twin, if you like, and answer related questions, disease and therapy related questions of any kind, remind them of medication intake, track symptoms, eventually even take up voice input, and provide event-based tips or provide regular health coaching to that patient. And this would be DIGAs that are very, very much more likely to be used by patients regularly and pleasantly. And it's important, of course, here to consider all the security and data protection requirements of DIGAs and make sure that the chatbot is being trained, or that mascot is being trained with, validated medical data and treatment guidelines rather than anything. And of course, it all needs to be validated clinically and very thoroughly tested and so on. So we are currently actually working on projects like that in psychotherapy, because there it's really important to have that digital companion, like almost physically in front of you, rather than boring forms that you fill. But while I'm dropping ideas, I just would like to make sure that this is about co-creation here. It's not about us providing the product ideas. It's really about co-creating product visions with clients that may have challenges and visions for years. They have basically got all these ideas already. They may think this is not feasible, it may be too complicated, and they have no idea how to actually tackle it. And that's exactly where we would like to support with this team here that I will present in a second. And it's always important then to balance the investment, the risk of failure, and the expected returns, and develop appropriate business cases that can be argued in front of management and investors and others. But before I stop here with this impulse speech, I would like to mention that why I'm so enthusiastic about that is, in fact, imagining that patients are so positive and willing to provide their data because they see the immediate value for themselves in their therapy journey. that this will actually bring around a change in the way people manage therapy, in the way they deal with their personal information. Now, they need to have trust, of course. It needs to be well made, but then this information is so extremely valuable, not only for themselves, for their therapy, but for many others and for medicine, medical science altogether. And I can speak for longer, but I think I should pause here for a moment.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you, Patrick. It definitely makes sense. But as you mentioned, there are a lot of aspects, or how to say, the challenges here, right? It's not just about the technical implementation and the strategic implementation of the functionality, but we're also talking about the aspects like, data privacy and clinical improvement, maybe some even scientific approach to some of this, right? And the humanitarian aspects of it. So it sounds like it's pretty complicated environment, right, to implement it, being alone. So
Yes.
how would you advise an approach, in terms of from organizational point of view, right? How to deal with these challenges?
Yeah, so I would just call you up and ask you to do it, and then you will know how to do it, Ivan. Is that how it works? No, no, I think we need a collaborative approach here, that's for sure. I don't know any single entity, there probably is one, but I don't know any, and I've looked around for long, that holds all the required competencies and is capable of developing a product from A to Z if it's such a demanding thing, so new. We've experienced that in the DIGA project. So we've all together been in many DIGA projects, and we've seen that it was so hard to kind of develop along changing environments, changing regulatory environments. So without Oliver, it would have been not possible really. And then, of course, we basically also realized that the companies that drive this, that need the products for their companion apps, for their drugs, or that are medical device companies that actually reach out to doctors and patients, that those are really lack a lot of resource availability and for sure competencies. And yeah, in that regard, we've seen startups that have a great focus, that have high speed, also money, but they may lack experience and budgets to deal with unexpected issues and pushback from regulatory authorities. They cannot do it again. It's just like one off, and you have to do it all right in the beginning. Now, with adding artificial intelligence into this complex development of digital health apps or medical devices, it becomes even more demanding. And this is why we have assembled this highly competent parties network. And I don't know, maybe we can share that real quick. That we all have a proven track record in this field, and we are able to manage any challenge on that journey from idea to success. And just recently, McKinsey have confirmed that in a white paper, which I found very interesting. It was actually published after we set this network up. Strategic alliances for generative AI, how to build them and make them work. And that is exactly the way to do it. Build them and make them work. And yeah, this new opportunity is awesome. It's very powerful, but it's also very complex. And it's not only about talking to each other and having the expertise, but it's actually managing projects, knowing how to manage projects, knowing how to interact across disciplines, different disciplines, integrating scientists, really clinical experts, medical experts into the picture. And here's just the big names. It's DataArt for sure. It's Google Cloud Services with a lot of powerful technology and a lot of people that have done it many times. It's myself together with an expert in AI, and we are reaching out to a large network of academics, also Fraunhofer IESE in specific. They do great stuff, and we can reach out and find any expert we may need for a project. And then it's the Digital Consulting Alliance. We're adding a lot of clinical affairs and in-depth legal know-how in regards to reimbursement and more. And for sure, Reginald, represented today here by Oliver, the Masters of Regulatory and Legal Manufacturing. So This is basically what I think is needed to develop projects from an idea all the way to a market launch, product launch.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you. So that's from an approach perspective and from strategic vision. Let's maybe move on in regards to the how it might be implemented from a technological point of view, right? So Andre, would you maybe elaborate a bit what kind of AI models, right, might be applied in nowadays for this personalized healthcare? And this, I know, recently, how the increasing recognition of these large language models in generative AI. So, and in correlation with what Patrick mentioned, all these, I know, chatbots and I know avatars and everything, which is helps in regards to the DIGA. So, what would you recommend in this from this perspective?
Thank you for the question. I will try to cover these topics. And basically, we don't have so much time. So I will start with talking about AI technology in general, and maybe we can talk about 2-3 AI models. So at first, I would start that AI technology, in my opinion, is an augmentation of a human being. For instance, it's an augmentation of a doctor or medical worker, and we might speculate a lot about human performance versus AIs. But in my opinion, one thing is undoubtful, that AI systems have much better reaction time. For instance, I will refer Patrick's example once again. By analyzing brainwave data and spotting anomalies, a patient can be notified in real time of an epileptic episode. And the best thing that we can scale up this solution because it relies on hardware, not on the medical worker training, right? And I would like to talk about models and possibilities, how we can scale them. And we can scale AI solutions by using cloud technologies, local data center deployment, or even maybe processing as much as possible on so-called edge devices like your smartphone. And the scaling part, this is what makes AI solutions that accessible and cost-effective. But we still, of course, need to consider the application, whether it's natural language processing, which can be covered partially by LLMs, or computer vision, or something else. And let's start with the tools. Let's start with large language models. And I mean, it's 2024, everyone has used ChatGPT already, and GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. And pre-trained is the keyword here from the application perspective, because it means that machine learning model, LLM, was trained on large array of text data, but still, and this is very important, it can perform previously unseen generic tasks. And the complexity of modern LLMs is unprecedented. They require massive computational resources for both training and running. And in the most cases, it means using cloud technologies even to host the model. And since we're using massive data sets for LLM training, it brings another question about data privacy, data bias, and even in some cases, the risk of retrieving sensitive data from trained models. And to address this, curating data sets as well as post-processing the model output, this becomes crucial. I would talk about 2 technologies associated with LLMs. One is prompt engineering. And this technology allows us to change model behavior by saying something like, let's play a card game, here are the rules. And based on this context, an LLM can be adapted, just its behavior can be adapted in real time to play a card game. This is fantastic. And similarly, by crafting right prompts, LLMs can assist with symptoms analysis, perform literature review, talk to patients. This is how you're building chatbot and beyond. But it's a simple card game. Like, what if something like 1,000-page medical textbook is required to diagnose a disease? And it is not directly possible with the current level of technology, because all language models, they have limitations connected with so-called context size. It's maximum length of text that LLM can process at a time. We're not talking about R&Ds, how to increase the so-called context size. What can we do right now? And one of the other technologies, retrieval augmented generation, or known as RAG, comes to rescue. We can make the context much smaller, that it will fit into LLM memory by retrieving only relevant data. Like, for instance, show me all the pages describing disease with rash and fever symptoms, and we can get answer, which will be based only on specific small context, showing that, okay, it might be, I don't know, rubella, measles, chickenpox, and it can ask additional questions. And even more than that, that means that using RAG technology, we can pull the latest clinical, the latest scientific data into the context to answer the questions, not only what was used even to train the model. And we are talking about factual information, meaning that it is less basically RAG technology makes the solution less prone to hallucinations. It simply cannot ignore facts about, say, patient data, disease conditions, and generate something completely irrelevant. There are some technologies how to run LLMs, not in the clouds and premises, but I would like to touch upon another kind of trendy thing, which is small language models. This class of models have the similar structure as LLMs, but they are tailored with specific domain knowledge. Hence, they require orders of magnitude less data than large language models, and since the name is small. And their reduced complexity allows them to be run locally, and sometimes even on your smartphone, on the local device, on the edge device. In some specific narrow tasks, there are evidences that they can outperform LLMs. For instance, writing reports that will be compliant with the local regulations of data format. And this class of models, SLMs, they can be a game changer in data privacy, as they can be exposed to your sensitive data that will not be transferred anywhere outside of, say, a local hospital or research organization. Now, and this reduces the very surface of attack, potentially. And still, we can use hybrid approach, because we don't need to give up LLMs in favor of SLMs or something like this. We can clean up PII data with small language model and share the clean data with the rest of the world. Maybe use a hybrid approach and use later large language models hosted somewhere else. And this about NLPs. And still, I would like to mention some evolution, some achievements in computer vision, in image analysis. And we're talking here about medical image analysis, for instance, like including radiology, pathology, slide analysis. And they have advanced beyond simple object detection and classification tasks. We can use, say, so-called multimodal ML solutions that can translate a medical image directly into textual description, like describing an X-ray image directly into text. And this is actually the course for the future of computer vision systems, when we can use multimodal data, once again, medical records, video recordings of patient movement to detect, for instance, early signs of, I don't know, neurodegenerative disease maybe. And the best thing that some of these models, even this advanced, can run on smart devices. And this is not only, just kind of a step or experiment how to use them without cloud technologies, but it might be an actual requirement in some cases, important for medical devices. What if an image analysis systems help you to navigate during surgery? Or you're in an emergency call and there's no network connectivity. And still, the system must be reliable and do not depend on the network conditions. So we can talk a little for hours about different models, different approaches, and I don't know, just maybe personalized genome analysis. But I would rather stop here and wait for other questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's very interesting indeed, and I would maybe interrupt for a second, just for the question from the audience. How can health tech providers differentiate in creating unique value proposition for their products when they're using a commonly available LLM API call? So I think that you partially addressed this question already in your examples, but maybe if you have anything else, or Patrick, maybe you, what might be the, how to say, improving the unique value proposition, right? If when you're applying LLM in your health tech solution.
If I may, I would start with the technical part.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, and I believe Patrick, with his experience, can add a lot to my answer. And we touched briefly upon visual augmented generation as one of the strategies, how to use, say, more or less generic large language model and build a specific context, use specific prompt engineering that can bring some value with some summarization, maybe with some generalization of symptoms and disease diagnostics. It would be better, of course, to fine-tune at least generator part in this pipeline to adapt these questions to make them more professional, to comply to specific formats, but still, even with say GPT-4 or with Sonnet models, it is possible to add some value to your everyday, just scenario.
Thank you.
Yeah, maybe just one thought from the business side, but that's not so easy to answer. It's like I mentioned, this mascot thing, where it's not just a chatbot that provides text or voice, but it's actually something visual that represents your company values, like logo colors and stuff like that. So it could be very simple things, but it could of course be way more complex by integrating other forms of data into it. Yeah, other types of features.
Indeed. Thank you. Right, gentlemen. So we are following to the last but not least part, right? We several times they were mentioning about some challenges in regards to the data privacy and some maybe risk management, right? And the sharing the data, etc. So, and of course, right now the AI components getting more and more attention in regards to from the regulators, right? And the recently appeared European Union AI Act is partially addressing that. So, Oliver, that we're going to you, right? So, how you would maybe explain how to properly address all this, regulatory questions, and maybe in regards to the data privacy and security, and how to structure properly the process, right, to be maybe even certified at the end of the day as a medical device, etc. So, any thoughts and elaborations here?
Yeah, thanks, Ivan. Maybe before I start, we have another question from Jonas Joos. Maybe Jonas, while I talk a little bit, you can elaborate a little bit more on your comment, your question, because I think we can see your question, but we are still not sure what you exactly mean. Maybe you can elaborate in the meantime. Yeah, and sorry for the lighting, but I think that it's good because I'm a little bit darker here, so we always have the dark side when we talk about regulatory, so it makes sense. They have this kind of shadows here. Yeah, regulatory. I mean, usually what I can do here now in this webinar is maybe just to come up with some of the, let's say, typical topics I'm facing or where clients are asking how to deal with it. And one of the most important one is always about, we are talking mostly about medical devices, and at that moment when we have the the examples mentioned by Patrick or by Andre, and as you may know, the classification of the products have a huge impact on the effort and timeline of your product, go to market, and one of the typical questions is that if I use AI within my medical device, am I automatically ending up into higher risk classes because of the AI? And it's very important to really say that this is not the case. So that if you use AI in medical devices, it has no impact on the classification. So you can still, theoretically be in class 1. It's always about what's the outcome of your product. And it can be AI based, it can be simply rule based software. So different methods to come to these conclusions by a software, but it's always about, what's the impact, what's the criticality, what happens after you provide this kind of information in order to come up with the classification. So that's very important to really rule this out, because it's a rumor floating around the whole time. So there's no influence here. The second one is, of course, when we talk about AI, is the AI Act, the AI regulation. So medical device manufacturers then, of course, ask, do I have to meet both regulations? So do I have to do 2 certifications now if I use AI? And again, there's another rumor that always, once you're using AI in a medical device, that again automatically you are considered to be a so-called high risk product under the AI Act, which is also not true, because the definition of these high risk products in the AI Act are really clear, saying that you need to meet 2 criteria to become a high-risk AI Act product. One is definitely if you fall into various of the legislations. One of them is the medical device legislation. So theoretically, you already have 1 check mark for a criteria for a high risk for AI Act. But there's also the second one. You have to meet both. So it's not an or, it's an and both have to be met. And the second criteria is that the medical device product must undergo a conformity assessment through a third party. So meaning you need a certification, a notified body. That means, to interpret this, it means only medical devices that have a notified body involved. So for example, a 2A product, these are the ones that will, of course, also be affected by the AI Act in terms of being a high-risk product. But if you're still class 1, then theoretically you are not affected, at least not as a high-risk product. You could still fall under it, but rather as a low risk, for example, that you need to at least show transparency, so that you, as Patrick mentioned, this chatbot, it must be clear for users that you are actually talking to an AI system and not to a human person. That's something that you have to meet. So as it is a very important conclusion, but I would always recommend to still, even if you're class 1 device, and you may know that all the DGAs are class 1, that I would still try to follow the AI Act requirements as much as possible, because in the end, it's state of the art in terms of what you need to do to have a proper, safe AI product, and you should try to reach the requirements as much as possible. You could go through them, look for low-hanging fruits to consider. And if you look exactly at the requirements, what the AI Act is asking for, it's not that different to what you would expect if you have an AI software at the moment being certified by a notified body. Some of the requirements in the AI Act are not directly written somewhere in the MDR framework, but they are usually resulting maybe out of the risk management. So example is the human oversight. So the AI Act is asking for human oversight, that this is a mandatory requirement, that your software is able to allow users to understand or to realize whether the product is having the right performance still. That's something you have to make sure. But it's again also says that the level of how you provide this kind of human oversight should always be appropriate to the product and to the what it's intending to do. And this is exactly what you would also do in the risk management of a medical device. So you would think about, okay, if I use an LLM tool, and I know it might start to talk nonsense at some point. So what the technical people would call confabulating or hallucinating. So this is something where human oversight definitely makes sense. There would be one option to make sure that you have a chance, for example, for if it provides you the sources of how it came up with this information, or whether it provides you the explanation how it came up with it, so what were the steps to come to this conclusion. These would be things that could, of course, would be also a resulting action item of a risk management anyway. And when you talked about RAG, so this was also one example to mitigate that an LLM tool would be monitored in a way that you can see that the text is not making sense at this stage. Another example would be semantic entropy. So what you would do here is that you have a second model in this framework, and you would ask the actual large language model when it comes up with a conclusion of a text that it will be displayed, that it will create at least maybe 3 or 4 variants of it, and that the second model will, from a semantic point of view, will double check whether all the 4 variants that are created are semantically correct, that they make sense altogether, and that there's not one deviating extremely from the other 3. So yeah, that's another example to make sure that you mitigate it in a way. And as mentioned, you can see, and as for this example, the AI Act is not really asking for really new things if you make proper AI technology and risk assessment. I agree that sometimes it might be too much, and that's something you have to then, it depends then on the classification again. So in class 1, you can still think then on how to leverage these requirements in a way that it makes sense and to make it appropriate for this. But if you're in a higher classification, you will need to meet them anyway. And one thing that also comes out always in the discussion is the definition. So when do I fall under the AI Act in terms of the definition of AI? People who are familiar with the definition of the AI Act about what is an AI, it talks about an AI system, which is not really defined. So it's kind of vague, and you're not pretty sure, do I fall under it or not? And just to calibrate everyone that, of course, this definition is not the best one, and I'm pretty sure that the European Commission is already working on guidance documents to provide more explanation. However, this is what's happening always. If you look at the MDR, the medical device regulation, or the former MDD, so we're having software as a medical device since '93, so last century, and now we have 24, and still I'm having so many discussions with authorities or with clients whether their product is a medical device or not, their software. So you will never be able to make a clear answer on that. Even in the MDR, even with the guidance, you have discussions, and it will be the same with the AI Act. So the typical approach there will be, try to use common sense. Wait for the guidance. And if it's still unclear, it's the same with the MDR. You need to go into a discussion with either a notified body or preferably an authority, because that would be the first way to go. So I think that's let's say a first summary of what's usually a topics I'm facing. And last but not least, if you talk about LM and all these kind of, let's say, continuous learning systems, it's definitely something that can be certified. And one highly recommendation here is, talk to different notified bodies, and if you're aiming for a continuous learning system, and ask them whether they are already familiar, whether they have certified them. I know there are definitely certain notified bodies that did that, because it will be the right choice to go there. If you look for a notified body that is that has the scope of being able to certify something, but has not that much experience, no surprise, they will be way more conservative in their approach of assessing it. As opposed to a notified body that is already having experience, is more relaxed, knows what it is about and what are the critical topics. So have this in mind, talk to different ones, and find the ones for this that are that at least give you the feeling that they are already experienced.
Thank you very much, Oliver. Yeah, that's a very great overview and nice advices. And we have a couple of follow-up questions from the audience to you. The first one is, the AI Act talks about training, test, and validation data. What is the difference?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. You have, of course, the training. You have these three phases. The first one, I think it's clear. It's the training data that you need to develop your model. And which is, of course, very important to have a robust model at this stage. So once you think your model is good enough, then you would actually use data, but not already in the clinical environment, but still, in-house, to technically test whether the model now works as intended. And the last one is then, of course, if you know that it technically works. Of course, there's always a difference when you usually use it in a clinic. So this is the last one. And I always also mix this up always, because there's if you coming from the medical device world, you would say that you have training is clear, then you have test data, and then you have validation. This is the phases where you are as an MDR software. The AI Act mixed the terms validation and test the other way around. So for them, validating means the in-house testing, so what the software would really call a verification phase, while the testing is then the clinical, let's say, validation. So it's kind of a problem also in the definition that we have different wordings here. Not sure whether this will be a problem in the future, but that's why it's a good question, because it's having different meanings in these two regulations. But in the end, I think it will be manageable also by the notified body.
Yeah, it's definitely confuse people for sure. Thank you, Oliver. The second one is, can you give examples what the AI Act requires in terms of data governance?
Yeah, I think the easiest term you could use from a medical device software environment would be configuration management. So you should aim for making sure that all the data that you use for your model is under version control, so that you have really clear understanding on what you are using here. So that would be one example on how to make sure that this is controlled. And another one would be this whole meta information. So and again, this is something that the AI Act is asking for precisely. It's not directly mentioned in the MDR, but it's again something that if you would do a risk assessment and think about, okay, if my model has a bias at some point, what would have I needed in terms of information out of my training to understand where the bias is coming from? So, and if you think about that, then thinking backwards, then you can start thinking about, okay, what kind of metadata, such as you would also do in a code, what should I put in there to later on understand how to identify, for example, a bias. So I need to know, where is the training data coming from? In which environment have I tested it? What kind of machines have I used in all this kind of stuff? So this is what I would call data governance, data handling in terms of the AI Act.
Thank you. There is, I'm not sure that if it's a question or just a comment. Let me read it through. So if you violate the AI Act, you can be the subject of the viral post on social media. The public is highly vigilant when it comes to AI and compliance, much more so than they were with GDPR. I don't know. Well, that's the fact, right? I don't know if we would like to comment it somehow.
I think it's rather a comment.
Yeah.
I mean, GDPR is definitely not a surprise, an important topic for AI. I'm just always thinking about, is there a new, let's say, opportunity? As you may know, when it comes to data handling and managing personalized data, theoretically, the AI Act is supporting you in a way to say, from a legal point of view, I must be able, for example, to get more information from the actual, in-field of patients using my product. Because one of the requirements of an AI Act is this, that I need to make sure that I meet the performance always as intended in the field. And this, for example, could be done in terms of reading out LLM conversations to understand is there a bias in there? Is the information going into the wrong direction? So this is something where you have to think about whether this maybe also comes in handy to have the AI now and to get more data to be used for this kind of performance monitoring. But in terms of violating AI Act, sure, it will be a critical topic.
Yeah, thank you. So the next question, probably Patrick, for you to address is, as far as you were talking about the approaches. So what if we have ideas but not available budgets and high risk journey ahead? How can you help us there? I think it's a pretty popular question nowadays.
Yeah, this is bad. Just to tell you, it's bad not to have a budget. No, just kidding. I mean, this is a very typical case because obviously it is easy to generate all these ideas now. Everybody who's played with ChatGPT, Perplexity, and all these nice tools will have many ideas. Yeah. So, and I think there's always possibilities to find money if the ideas are really good, but the idea is not all of it. And I would like to come back to Jonas' question, which I read now, the second part of it. It's really about a complete business model that you have to develop. It's not just thinking about an idea, where and how to use AI to do something. You need to really think about a business model where somebody benefits from a product, a workflow, or some feature or tool, so that there actually is a value from a medical perspective or from an economic perspective. And that is what typically makes up a good product. And then it's not enough to have that product being good. You have to basically think about your distribution channels and how to market the product, position it against existing solutions, do proper marketing and have partners. If you're a small startup with a focus on technology, what you should look for is a business model where you basically outsource it, co-develop it with bigger companies like pharmaceuticals that typically lack this expertise, but they may have a great sales force for your individual disease related whatever topic. So it's really about developing a good 360-degree business case, I like to call it, thinking of everything: technology, product, marketing, distribution or sales, and the organization for sure, to make it all work, and then calculate that through financially, and then you go ahead and apply for investor funding, or you go to a big one that would co-fund your project, or there are many ways of public funding opportunities these days, even for clinical studies. Now, again, a new program which I like a lot. It's about supporting clinical studies for digital therapeutics. So yeah, this is what I can say to that. So startups will be supported by us, but coming without a budget is always difficult to say as a service provider. You should come
Indeed.
with some budget idea.
Yeah, thank you, Patrick. We have a question probably which goes to Andre that is more technical. What are the key considerations for building a secure AI-enabled system, and how do they differ from traditional IT systems?
Okay, I'll take it. First of all, we should not forget that basically any AI-enabled system is still an IT system in the first place. And we basically have to follow the data privacy and data security, I would call them hygiene rules that are applicable to any IT solutions. I will start with some common sense data encryption because we need to securely store data. Sometimes it should be available even only to the user, even not to us. And we have to establish security of data in transit, basically how we're transferring this. If we're going to transfer data in cloud, then it might be solved by, of course, it should be encrypted, but we might think about establishing IPsec connection and take other measures. We need to define access control, who's accessing what. We need to define this early, and this is dictated by multiple regulations, audit transaction logs, business as usual, and basically data minimization principle, for instance, is applicable both to kind of classical IT systems, any IT systems and systems that include AI. So if you do not need to keep, for instance, a person name, PII data in blood test samples, in blood test results, then you don't have even to store them anywhere if you need this only just for statistics. And if we talk about LLM system, there is additional risk. First of all, it's the security of the training data set, and it's top priority, because if you do not want to share this training data set with anyone, then basically you have to keep it as secure as possible, because first of all, it's your intellectual property, and it's sometimes the most costly part of your solution. You have to prevent. Sometimes there's a problem. There's another type of attack, because introducing complicated systems like LLMs might bring some other risks like data poisoning. It is the process of attack on the data set again, or the training process that will affect the ML model performance, definitely. And of course, when you're spinning up your model in production, you can, if you do it wrong, then basically, or if you don't clean up data sets, training data set, then some information can be revealed. Maybe it might be sensitive data, so this just model inversion attack that I mentioned before, and some other adversarial attacks are possible, basically with formulating prompts specifically to change the output significantly. And of course, just ethical consideration, bias detection. There are both human overview approach, as Oliver mentioned. There are some formal metrics to measure this bias. This will lead to reviewing data set, generating extra samples to balance your data set, and there are some other measures. So that's it. That's it about data privacy. We are, in other words, increasing the surface of attack sometimes if we do this wrong.
Right. Thank you, Andrei. So it seems that we addressed all the questions from the audience. So then I think it's a perfect timing that we need to start wrapping up. Thank you, guests and the audience for listening to us. Definitely the topic is pretty complicated. It's hard to cover everything in just 1 hour, but we did our best. In case if you have any follow-up questions or you need to get any additional details, information, whatever, just please contact us via LinkedIn or by email, which you see in your screens. And maybe the last conclusion words from anybody of our guests. Anything? Patrick, Andre, Oliver, would you like to say something at the beginning? Just 2 minutes left, or we're wrapping up.
Should I?
Yeah, go ahead.
No, Oliver, please.
Maybe just, I think we have already shown that that this combination of these different activities, streamlines, are worked under the medical device regulation already for AI. So we already have shown that, and I'm pretty confident that that will be not different from when the AI Act is coming up and being really present. So if you have topics and I think you have seen everyone with the different expertise, let us know, and I think we are pretty sure we can help you.
Yeah, and I just would like to thank everybody because I think I hope you could see that we are really enthusiastic about this idea of AI-enhanced healthcare, and we're quite ambitious actually with the consortium. And we would love to discuss stuff with you and see what we can do. Startups, big companies, doesn't matter. If the topic is exciting, we will burn for it and think about solutions to make it happen. So great to have you here. And I'm in the middle of a thunderstorm, so I'm sorry I was out of the meeting for a while. Lightning struck my house, actually. Everything was gone.
All right. Okay.
I would like to thank our audience. And if you have any follow-up questions, or maybe some, just something sound not clear, or there are gray zones, or whatever, we might have another webinar to cover this topic. So if you can send something as a follow-up, that would be great. Thank you so much.
Thank you much, everybody, and have a good evening. Cheers.